Hey, how's it going? My name's Mike. I'm an amateur manga creator, and I like to do YouTube videos that kind of document my journey along the way to being published. So in today's video, I'm actually going to split this into two different parts. So I have one part coming out this week, of course, and then next week I'll be doing the second part. I'm going to be talking about which head angles you should actually be memorizing, because you don't necessarily need to memorize every single angle, and I'm going to show you why. Let's get started. Alright everybody, so there's a lot of information on this page here, but I'm not going to break down all of this today. What I'm going to do in part 1 is I'm just going to make an argument, and in part 2 I'm going to really prove that argument through a grouping of all of these faces. So one thing that I see pretty frequently on basically almost every YouTube channel that's pretty popular is this idea, this notion that you have to memorize how to draw the head in every single angle, and if you're using reference, it's not a good thing. I strongly disagree. And if that's not the actual message that's being said, I think it's kind of implicit in what people are saying during the video. In fact, I would argue that there is no need for extreme angles to be memorized, because you only use extreme angles for really one reason, and that is when the facial expression isn't as important as the action. So the facial expression is not equal to action, or I guess is less than the action, right? So the action is reigning supreme, so the face doesn't even matter as much anymore. So if the face doesn't matter anymore, then why would you spend a lot of time memorizing that angle when you can just use a reference and get the general gesture of the angle? So let me go to this panel right here from Bleach, and I will show you what I mean. So we get this particular page in which the Grand Fisher is snatching up Ichigo's sister, and it ends with, so we get a facial expression here, but it ends in this action sequence where she's being pulled and lifted up off the ground at a very fast pace. So when that happens, we get a very extreme facial angle, which is you get something like this. And then the jaw is open, so you get the bottom of the chin being here. So you get this, right? And you can't even see the eyes. So this is an important angle to be able to draw, but it's not an important angle that you should be memorizing or spending a lot of your time on. You should spend a majority of your time drawing these faces here, right? And this one too. And that's because you want to practice the thing that you are doing the most. So if you look here, what happened with the camera angle. So we get this slight 3/4 view that's a little bit downwards for this face here. Then you get the extreme angle, but then you immediately get this angle here where the camera is hovering right here and facing down, and it's almost, and I can even twist it here. Let me just do it this way real fast to kind of show you. I can even just twist this face and you can see what it is. It's just the 3/4 angle face, right? So that is what you want to memorize, and I'm going to continue to prove this to you. So let's take a couple of pages and we'll study 2 pages from each manga that isn't just that Bleach manga, and then we're going to kind of go through or sorry, I meant just this volume of bleach. But we're gonna go through and kind of compare and contrast which faces are being used. So this right here, this, and this are all 3/4 views, right? Let's go into a couple more faces for bleach. This, 3/4 views, right? Now, this is a more straight on 3/4 view. So what you see that probably kind of feels like more dynamism in these pieces is you get faces, because the 3/4 view is just, if I was to do a box, the 3/4 view is just this right here. Right. So you get faces where the camera, like for instance this, the camera is actually still 3/4, but it's just brought up slightly. So instead of this, you get this. Right? That's all this is. But I would argue this isn't an extreme angle. This is just the same thing. And if you know your perspective, it doesn't take much in order to take this face and put it in this angle, right? And you can practice that. That's the thing you should practice pretty frequently, because it will allow for more dynamism in your piece for pretty cheap, right? It doesn't take long to learn from this facial angle to this facial angle. It's much easier, right? So this is what we're getting here. And this is, I would argue, a slightly lower 3/4 angle. So it's almost like this. But that's still, it's just the counterpart to that one. So for 3/4 view, you get 3 angles that you should be learning, and that's it, right? It's not that difficult to do those 3 angles, and it shouldn't be too much for you to practice. So let's now compare and contrast. I'm a little angry because I used the wrong layer, but that's okay. But let's compare and contrast that to, let's go to Full Metal Alchemist. Which page do I want to use for that? Let's go here. Alright, so we get 3/4. That's slightly above. In fact, and I'm going to show you this, this is nearly identical to the one that we just saw for Ichigo, right? And let me prove it to you. Look at it. Look at it! Look. That is literally the same exact angle. Right? There's not much difference between those angles. In fact, I would say there's no difference at all. The only real difference is the fact that you get slightly more perspective with the chin from Alphonse. Alright, so then we get basically a front view, side view, 3/4, 3/4, 3/4, 3/4, and 3/4. Right? And then we get this, which is, this is a slightly different angle, but not by much. It's a 3/4 from above, but with the caveat of it's actually slightly subdued. So a little more subtle from above. Same here, front view. This is 3/4. This is a back 3/4, which is a different view. Alright, so we get all of those. Now, let's go to Dr. Stone. This is the most extreme angle in any of these pages, right? By far, I think. But that's one page out of like 73, or one panel out of 73 panels. So I don't know how many faces, and I'll be able to tally it up in my next video. I don't know how many faces there are on this particular canvas right now, but I would say you get one extreme angle in about probably like 200 faces, right? that tells you something, right? It tells you that you don't need to memorize that. So we get a side view here. This is, it looks like a very, very different angle, but it's really not. It's this angle here. It's basically front view. It's just tilted downwards. So it's the same angle as this one, except for turned just slightly that way. Right, so it's not very much different. Get this angle here that's 3/4 slightly below. Basically a front view. Then if you look at this page, basically a front view, 3/4 back view, basically a front, 3/4, basically a front. So here, this is what I think that I would like for the takeaway for this video to be. You really need to learn 9 faces really, really well. Front, side, 3/4. And you need to learn all of those from a slightly above view, straight, and slightly below view. In the below view, I don't know if you can tell this, a lot of the times you can't even, it's not even low enough for you to really see the bottom of the chin. So you don't get these views and angles in which the mandible looks like this, right? You don't get too many of those views. And in reality, you're getting more of this view right here, where it's barely noticeable. And you're just seeing a little bit of the underside. So this is what I would say you actually need to memorize. The rest of the things, just use reference. Don't try to practice and practice, because this is like, I can't wait until I like am able to like sit down and really do the statistics for it. But I'm gonna guess that this is like 95% of all the faces on this canvas right now, maybe more, right? So I'll come back next week with that particular video and really go into depth. But I hope that this was helpful for you. I hope it was helpful to see basically a case study across these 3 different manga, different creators, and see how faces are really, I think that it's just stressed too much that we need to memorize all these angles, and it's just not true. You should have a structure for how to start everything, but you don't need to practice everything. You practice the views that you're going to use the most. Alright everybody, hopefully that was helpful for you. I'm Manga Mike, and I'm out.